the two can't live without each other. If this village wasn't there, the college I don't think it would be as strong, and vice versa. We are stronger for each other.
Ba-bum. Dave Bolger here, and welcome to Had I Known, a show that explores the journeys of some of the most interesting members of the Hamilton College community. This week's guest is Steve Bellona, mayor of Clinton, New York. All right, back for another one. It's good to have you back. The more I do this, the more I spend time reflecting on my time at Hamilton, I find myself thinking about all the things I took for granted. And two such things we're going to touch on this week. The first is the relationship between the students and the physical campus and all of the work that goes into keeping that campus running. When I was there, I was aware of a thing called physical plant. I didn't really comprehend all that went into it and all of the people that were dedicated to keeping that thing running, keeping the students happy. And then the second that we'll touch on this week, and this has come up before on the show. I remember Amanda Daflos talking about it. I remember Antonia Farzan talking about it. And that is the world outside the Hill. I certainly didn't appreciate the symbiotic relationship that exists between Clinton, New York, and the school. Well, this week we're talking to somebody who has experience in both of the areas I'm talking about. Mayor Steve Bellona, the mayor of Clinton, New York, certainly understands and talks about the relationship that exists between the school and the village and how the two need each other to exist. But he also talks about his experience prior to being the mayor when he was the Associate Vice President of Facilities and Planning for Hamilton. During his time in that role, he oversaw immense growth and expansion at the school, managing a variety of renovations and new building projects, from the Science Center to the Fitness and Dance Center to renovating KJ to the Student Center. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if that isn't enough, he was also an assistant track coach at the school. I say at the beginning of every episode that this is a show about the most interesting members of the Hamilton community. And I think that's an important word when talking to somebody like Steve, because that's essentially what he has done and he continues to do, is to build the Hamilton community, both in his time literally building it, running the physical plant, and to now managing it and fostering the community as the mayor of Clinton. And you hear that come through in this conversation, how important that is to him. If you were a student from 1997 all the way up until today, if you stepped foot on that campus from 1997 until today, this man had a major hand in shaping that experience for you. So have a listen. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Mayor Steve Bellona.
You got the right microphone there, that's for sure.
Right, but the wrong recording studio, as you can see. Yeah. I get on these Zooms with people and they have lovely backgrounds and they see me sitting in my closet and like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Nothing's going.
They're going like everyone else.
Yeah.
Day by day, hanging in there,
Well, have you got your shots yet? That's the latest question everybody asks each other. So,
yeah, exactly.
I look at this whole thing, and you just keep on, just follow the directions and stay out of trouble, and try to avoid, doing things that are, you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
We're just walking. Chris and I just got back from a walk, and you walk through the town. You sort of on the outskirts. You keep your mask off. You're going down there. You got plenty of room to go with that. Then you get down to the sidewalks, and since it's being the mayor, I have to follow my own directions. Put the mask on.
Well, right. You lead by example, right?
That's the whole idea. It's been honed into me since I was 10 years old with my father. So
yeah, and I bet when you signed up for that gig, managing a village through a pandemic probably wasn't part of your outlook on what you're going to be dealing with as the mayor, huh?
No, it did not exactly fit into the criteria. So it happened, so you deal with it. So
how's it been going in the village?
oh, not too bad. It's actually been pretty good. I mean, everybody's been pretty responsible.
Good.
We haven't had a lot. I mean, we've had some cases, but we were doing some sewage testing earlier on in the last year, later on last year, inside August, September, and through the 1st of February. And we only had one really spike, and that was right after Christmas. Everything else was pretty. We had a few cases, 2 or 3 cases, and a couple of cases from the hill, that feeds into the system.
Sure.
But by and large, it was fairly. It was sort of benign, and so I thought we weathered it well. And I thought the college did remarkable. I mean, I was very. I couldn't have asked for the work that they did, on the hill to make everything much more pleasant for the village.
I talked to President Whitman earlier this week, actually, and we obviously talked a lot about that. And, as I understand from him, students haven't been leaving campus, which I imagine makes things easier for you down in the village. From that perspective, anyway.
There are a couple of them. You see a couple of them, but the ones that were down here, sort of illegally, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
they were, they're very, very responsible. So they were coming down with their mask on. They were social distancing, doing all the right things. So I had no. In fact, every comment I got from anyone in the village was very positive about how the students were being very, very supportive and responsible. So,
and then obviously the village is so tied to the school. I think I read something that said 10,000 visitors come through in a given year to the school, whether it's tour it or visit it or parents or what have you. And obviously a lot of that is curtailed. How's the village managing? Yeah. How's the village managing with all that?
Well, the businesses are doing okay. I think what we tried to do a lot of stuff earlier on, and that the college was very supportive of that too. When we got into the March and April, those are the big months where we were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to support our businesses? And we got together a group of folks from the school, from Hamilton, local businessmen, myself, and the chamber, and tried to think of ways to support the various businesses and how to do that. So, we buy local. A lot of things. We were closed pretty much until May anyway. There was very few stores. There was a couple of stores that were doing, claiming things, but not a lot of people were going into them. But the fact is that, by May, we were starting to be able to somewhat open a little bit again to allow a certain number of people in the stores with masks and do all that. We got everybody geared up to do that. And they've been doing okay. The restaurants pretty much went all takeout. And they just have been doing that ever since. And even when we went into some partial dining, indoor dining in the summer, they decided all to stay closed. They're so small.
Right.
Anybody that gets something inside, it shuts them down completely.
Right.
And so rather than they take that chance, they decided to go ahead and just do takeout completely. And so we opened up an outdoor. Opened up an outdoor dining area closed a couple of parking spots in the street. And college paid for the tables and the chairs, and donated them to the Chamber of Commerce. And so we were able to create that dining area, and you even had the mayor bussing tables. So
lead by example. Lead by example, right?
That's right. So by and large, they've done well. We had 3 empty, so we had 3 businesses close, but we've had 3 businesses fill back in again. So, and we haven't had a small restaurant that filled back into one of the other stores. So, but we have missed it. We have missed the people downtown. Yeah, the students, the parents. That has a big impact. That's there's a lot of income that we've missed over the last year. Sure, events, whether it be folks coming in for picking up their kids, commencement reunions, dropping their kids off. It's been that's been a struggle.
Hmm.
But hopefully this doesn't last much longer. We can get through the vaccine, and we'll be ready to go again.
Right. And speaking with President Whitman, it sounds like they were close and hope to be close again on officially allowing students off the Hill. I imagine that will help a little bit in the short term.
Yeah, fair. There's a couple of places that are would normally will fit those. They would support.
Sure.
And so I think that it would be positive. We don't have any of our bars are not open here locally, so because they can't serve food.
Right.
We don't really have kitchens to serve the food that they would have to serve.
Right.
So that's put a kibosh on a lot of at least on that.
There's some traffic from the Hill into those establishments for sure.
Yeah, occasionally. I think you might know about that.
I've driven past it a few times on my way back up the hill. Yeah. So I'm interested in your role as the mayor, given your history with the school, being on the other side of the relationship between the village and the school. Was there anything that surprised you in this role?
No, not really. I think that I think for me, it's always been a positive relationship. I'm not, I mean, I'm sure that there's all those other things there's some things that are out there that would, where, history brings in the fact that there's not that relationship, but I mean, the college does so much for the village in so many different ways. And I think that some of those things are unsung. You just don't know about it. But when you start talking to people and finding out, what took place, the college is involved in a lot of different areas, not necessarily monetarily sometimes, but, just in the fact that you have so many different things on the Hill that people can go to, not here in the last year, but, you've got, all the athletic events, you've got the theater, you've got the concerts, all the different social activities that, take place that the village has a great opportunity to take advantage of. And a lot of people do, just going up to walk on the Hill, you're walking up the hill. That in itself, when the college was closed from March through till August, that period of time when there was no students on the Hill, if it hadn't been there, trust me, the amount of people walking up there from the village, just they found it to be where they felt uncomfortable maybe on the downtown here. They were up there, walking around, enjoying the scenery and just the quiet and the solitude.
Interesting.
So there's just a lot of things, and we get a lot from them. The town gown fund provides a lot of support for the fire department, for the local economy in the sense of the not-for-profits, and so those things really assist out. They support the school dramatically with the town gown fund, but also there's a municipal agreement that's a contribution agreement that the college has with the village, the town, and the schools, as well as the county, that provides money to direct monetary support to them to support their activities. And I can guarantee you, without that, for me, it doesn't sound a lot, but $27,000, means a lot to me when it comes into my, revenue, part of my revenue stream.
Sure.
And because that helps pay for, it pays a part of my bonding for a vehicle that I need to support, moving snow around or doing some activities. And if I didn't have that, we would be hard pressed to have that without raising our taxes. And so, that's like 40 cents. That's a 40-cent increase in our taxes on our tax levy if we didn't get that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That adds up.
And
yeah.
So so they do a lot. And I've always felt that, I moved here in '97. So I'm not necessarily, I'm what you call, I'm a newbie. I'm definitely not. I am not a Clinton. There's a word for it. It says, I'm not sure it's a Clintonite or a Clintonian. If you're a Clintonian here, you've lived here for ages.
Right.
If you're a Clintonite, you've only been here for less than 50 years. So, but from my standpoint, being here for the last 24 years, I really believe, and as being mayor, the support that the college has given the village has really been tremendous. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner.
That's great. You mentioned the village taking advantage of what the school has to offer. I was involved pretty heavily with the radio station when I was a student, right around the time you joined the school. I graduated in 99. I was always struck by how many listeners to the radio station were from the village and the surrounding areas, and how many calls we'd get as, listeners and fans of the work we were doing. I would always have the assumption that I was just talking to a few people, half paying attention in their dorm room, but in fact that they were, real listeners and people who supported the school in that way. It was always interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's just, the connections are there, and there's a lot of graduates of Hamilton that live in the village. I mean, I've got my next door neighbor is a graduate from Hamilton. I think he's 82. So, so there's, I think, there's just a lot of different opportunities that are there, and I think it's been a very strong relationship. And I think it's, and quite honestly, the current administration has been very supportive across the board. And so, and as was the last one and the one before that too. So every time, the 24 years that I've been here, the college has supported that. I mean, I've been in, if you think about just what I've been involved with, there's people, I've been on the planning board for the Clinton Planning Board, Village Board, the trustee and then mayor, but there's other people that have been involved with the school boards and the like that have really, brought a lot of, I would say, just breadth of knowledge and wealth to the village, and it's in the personalities as well as just their support of the local community and everything that we do. So
that's great. And you're coming up on the end of your term, is that right?
I am coming up on the end of my term. I'm not running again this year. I feel that there's I was asked to do the job, come into the job, and I said I would serve for 2 years, and I'm going to keep my word.
Okay.
But we do have a very strong, I believe, a very strong group of folks coming in to take on some role. Elizabeth Tantillo, hopefully, she's running for mayor. I believe unopposed right now. And then we've got Rit Fuller, who was previously, and you may have known Rit Fuller. He was dean of admissions, and so I think they've got a good, strong group coming in, and I'm very, very pleased that they're taking on that role
and continuing a strong connection with the school with those names as well. Yeah, that's great.
Elizabeth, and I think everybody recognizes that there's this village supports the two can't live without each other.
Right.
That's my belief. If this village wasn't there, the college I don't think it would be as strong as it is right now, and vice versa. We are stronger for each other.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. So let's go back to your arrival on the Hill. How did you end up at Hamilton College?
Oh boy, I'm not sure if you want this story or not. I'll give you the short version of this thing.
Okay, all right.
I got. Let's put it this way: I applied in December of 1996 for the position, and it came open. And a good friend of mine who gave me the information about the college that it was open, and I put in my application. Because I didn't, I was thinking about, should I stay in the Coast Guard or get out of the Coast Guard, whatever. And I was in command of a Coast Guard cutter out of Seattle at the time. And so I put my application in and not really knowing what was going on. About 4 days later, I get a call from Dan O'Leary and asking me, and this is like I think it was like the 21st or the 22nd of December. And then after about 45 minutes on the phone, he said, "How would you like to come for an interview?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "How can you come in February?" He says, "No, I'm going to be in the middle of the Bering Sea." Well, can you come here? And I said, "No, I'm going to be in dry dock." He says, "Well, when can you come?" And I says, "I can be there on the 2nd of January." And he says, "Okay." So I quite honestly, I didn't own a suit. I didn't own the only thing I had was uniforms, and I couldn't. So my wife and I went out and got me a couple of sports coats and some pants, and could show up presentable, as opposed to wearing all my military regalia. And I got and then had a nice interview. It was a wonderful interview. Dan called me on the phone, in February of '97. I was in the middle of the Bering Sea. I just come out of Dutch Harbor. We were on a search and rescue call. We were beating our way into 20-foot seas with a helicopter that had just landed with almost no fuel at the airport, picking up the injured fisherman, and was trying to beat my way up to St. Paul Island in the Pribilofs. And I had about 60 tons of ice on my ship, and he called me on the phone and said, "How'd you like to come in Hamilton?" And I said, "Love to."
Wow.
And he says, "When can you be there?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I have to ask my wife, and I can't get back to you because I'm 2 weeks out away from being back in Dutch Harbor. So I have to." So 2 weeks later, I call him up. I call my wife, and But the long story is that after several different iterations, I show up on September of '97. I was very lucky. A
little different though. Search and rescue missions in the Bering Sea versus being on the campus of Hamilton College. It's a little culturally a little different for you, huh?
Well, a little
Clinton
bit.
Isn't exactly a coastal city.
No. But one of the things was, but my previous job before I had my last tour and my last command was I was actually the director of physical plant at the Coast Guard Academy. So I had 4 years of experience in the academic arena, but with cadets instead. So I did pretty much. It was the same exact job. It was just instead of cadets marching around saluting me with my uniform on and my hat, I had a bunch of students running around, not even recognizing me, which was great. So
I was curious about that point there, because it certainly, as a student, thinking back to my time there, early on in your tenure there, certainly everyone knew what the physical plant was, and generally speaking, I think what they did, but I think by and large took the work you all did completely for granted. Seemed like a thankless job looking back.
No, actually, it wasn't. I mean, for me, there's one of the things I found out about being at the Coast Guard Academy, and I tried to think about this also at the when I came to Hamilton, is that students, whether they're at the Coast Guard Academy or whether they're at the Hamilton College, have an opinion. Okay, and you have to listen to that opinion. And I think that's the most important part of the job that I had, was to try to listen to that as much as I possibly could in different venues. I coached track at the academy for 4 years as a volunteer, and I thought it was a great way for me to get to know students and to understand what's going on. And besides, I ran track with the academy myself personally, so and all my coaches were volunteer coaches except for one who was the head coach. And so for me, it was a sort of a payback, a way of paying it forward to do it at the academy, but also to recognize too is that it was a good way to know students as well. And I loved my experience as a track coach at at Hamilton as well, not only because I love track and I love coaching, but also to have the opportunity to be with students, to understand them and make me feel I could understand what they wanted. And so
how would you take that back to your day job?
Well, I did from a day-to-day thing, most of the things were about my shower doesn't work in the gym. Okay, well, great. I'll take that back. We'll put a work order in for that, and we'll get it going. And next day they would say, "Wow, thanks God, coach, for fixing that up for me." But I think that the biggest thing was, it's not necessarily them just coming up to me and talking to me and saying it. It's being on the bus and listening to them talk and hearing things, and and recognizing that, if we're going to try to do things, how can we get input from students on things and the like. And when we started doing like the science building, and from that time forward, we always had some sort of representative from some students involved, and along with faculty and staff, to help us understand what their needs were. And if we had, and the idea being is that even if we were doing some renovations, the library, for instance, there was always this feedback that's going, we need more outlets. So it's okay, where do we put outlets? How do we do that? And so I think, to me, it's a recognition that yes, it's always nice to be on the background. It was nice to be up out of the way because we can, get our job done and well. But at the same time, being able to be connected to the students and the staff and the faculty to learn from them, to understand what their needs are, because we build facilities. We don't build them for us. It'd be nice to be able to just to build a brand new facility that says, here's physical plants building. Well, of course, we would put no windows in because we want to have a nice tight envelope. All right. We want a really efficient boiler system, but we want to keep it at 62 degrees to save energy. We don't want to have a lot of light because that uses a lot of energy. So when you walk in, we want to be able to turn lights off as we go along. I'm being facetious now.
No,
but,
I get you.
Yeah, but the fact is that we want to create spaces that invigorate the people that are in them.
Yeah.
And so the students are living in them, and the faculty are living in them. And if we can, when we do the renovations, how can we make those spaces support their needs?
Yeah.
And I think that is something, that I found out at the academy trying to do that. It takes a lot of planning. But at the same time, if you do it right, you build great facilities.
You built a lot of them.
We did a few. We did a few.
How hard is it to balance? There in many ways there's an arms race with colleges to make sure they have the biggest and best facilities to attract the top caliber student. But there always seemed to me a strong connection to the history of the school and keeping it, keep the quaint feeling and the older buildings, alive.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance the connection to the past but building modern facilities? Was that hard?
It is a challenge. I think that we had some great architects that work with us and were able to understand our needs. I think one of the nice things about it, what I really felt was a strong connection that really was beneficial. Was the strong connection between the board of trustees and the alumni, that group, back to the college, and their connection in wanting to, that feedback and really feeling strongly about trying to develop the college and to make sure that the facilities are top notch to meet that need, but also to recognize is that we have a very unique campus. I think it's the most beautiful campus. Well, I should say it's the second most beautiful campus. I think the Coast Guard Academy, my alma mater, is really pretty gorgeous. But Hamilton is really just a remarkable place from a facility standpoint. Located on the hill, got great views. It's got such a good sense of place, and it's been built up over the years.
Sure.
In landscaping and the like, and we had a good landscape. I think we had a good landscape land use plan that was developed in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004, that stood us to good stead. And I think Roger Wakeman and the group have done a nice job of coming to grips with creating another plan that took that, and then also have taken the new ideas and developed them a lot further. And so they've got it, so the future still looks has that same bright future for the college. But it's the sense of scale. And so when you start talking to architects, they're smart people, so if you tell them we want to keep the sense of scale and the beauty and this and they come in with a program that fits well with the ideas of what the trustees feel about the place as well. We had a good, strong, and I think it still is a very strong buildings, grounds, and equipment committee from the trustees who built subcommittees to support a lot of the major construction efforts, and they kept a very close eye on this and going back and forth with the architects to really create a sense of place. And so when you looked at it, when we built that with a lot of those ideas in mind. And as a result, the planning effort to get up to each one of these stages. In other words, it took us 9 years to finish from the start of the science building to the actual finish of it.
Wow.
So there's a lot of planning, the design, and then finally the construction. And we've pretty much there was very few buildings that didn't sort of have that same sense of, okay, here's where we're starting. Here's our thought process, how we're going to get there. Here's our planning. Here's our input down the line and get to that particular point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there's at some point, there may have been some questions about, why we built that way. But I think by and large, we've ended up with a space that sort of, when people come back,
sure,
they feel, wow, it hasn't really changed a lot, but it has changed a lot.
I hear that a lot. I haven't been back to campus in a while, but I hear that from folks that have been back. It's exactly what I hear. And to your point about the beautiful campus, I've done about 40 or so of these conversations, and I ask most people, how did you end up in Hamilton? And almost to a person, everyone references, well, the first time I went on the campus, it's just so, as I've said before in the show, if you have a specific image in your mind of what college is supposed to be, Hamilton can fit that description pretty easily. It's a big seller for sure.
It is. And I just getting back from my, I was thinking about my interview, how, why Hamilton? Why did you end up here?
Yeah.
I ended up, when I first came for my interview, I came out, you were talking about walking on the campus in the 2nd of January, what does that look like?
Right. A little different yeah, sure. Right.
And, I walked around that night. I got to the campus, like at about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. I mean, it was dark, but I walked around the campus, the entire campus, that night, just to get a sense of the place. And I fell in love with it the first night. It was like love at first sight. Mm. I literally, it was remarkable for me as a civil engineer to walk on board a campus like this and say, and then have somebody say, would you like to have a job to take care of this place? And I'm going, oh my God. I was like, it was just like, I would say yes in a second. In fact, I had to make a decision as to whether or not to resign my commission from the Coast Guard or to wait for the assignment panel to come out and make a decision there if I got an opportunity to come here. I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not until sometime in February. And that the board was meeting on the 5th of January. And I said to myself, on the way home that night, on the 4th of January, back to Seattle, I made the decision that I was going to resign my commission when I got back. And I called Dan O'Leary the following morning and said, "Oh, Dan, I just want to let you know that I don't have the job yet, but I just want to let you know that I just resigned my commission. And if it is offered to me, I'd be yes, I will probably take the job." And he goes, and his first words out of his mouth was, "Wow, that was a big decision."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably one of the bigger decisions.
Talk about going all in, right?
I'm all in.
There you go.
But anyway, so that to me it was the sense of what I got from my walk from Hamilton is that if I could be offered a job to come to a place like Hamilton, I'm coming.
In all of your incredible accomplishments at your time at the school, because you basically oversaw unprecedented growth and expansion during your time there, any projects you didn't get to do that you had wanted to? Was there anything left undone in your mind?
There's always a project. There's always a project. I was thinking about, okay, when do I retire? And it's like, okay, I'll retire after when there's no more, I'm finished with the next project. This project. Well, I'm finished with this project and I'm already into the next project.
Right.
But to me, as much as anything, it was difficult to leave, not because of that. It was the fact that, we don't do this work. This work was not done, by any one individual. This work was done by a multitude of individuals, between the trustees, the architect, the contractors, my physical plant group. I had 120 folks that work for me up at the plant who were just remarkable folks or individuals. I mean, they knew their mission. and they were going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I first got here, I was always sort of, sort of feeling my way around, but, it's realizing that, you've got great people, and sometimes you just got to turn them loose. And give them the opportunities to make things better. And I had guys who were just coming up with ideas who, think, well, maybe we can do this, and maybe we can do this to save energy, do this. And so really, to me, that was the centerpiece of all our successes were the people that I work with at Hamilton. Yeah. I was just sort of the guy, that paid me to sort of be the front man, I guess. But the bottom line is that if I could have been in the background, just doing my job, it would have been great. I mean, I feel good that people recognize me for the work, but it really was about everybody that was involved in each one of these projects.
I'm curious. Much has been made about the diversity and inclusion, the advisory council, the president's advisory council, of which you're a member. And I thought it was interesting, both in your current role, but also as in your former role as having a seat on that council, because in thinking about it, imagine that there's an important role to be played in understanding how a school's facilities and how it's built physically play into the idea of diversity and inclusion. So I'm curious your experience on that, and if those are conversations that come up as part of that council.
It's interesting. I'm not sure if we really got into physical space per se on this. I think that wasn't really the main driver that at least that I could see
Gotcha.
in the conversation. But I do feel it does play a role. For me, when we start taking a look at the Days Masilla Center, the ALCC. Those two spaces really provide needed space for folks to have a place that they can call a safe place, whether it be a safe space or a place where they can create have those conversations in private or with other people. I think facilities can play a fairly large role in that. And I think that those two have played hopefully they've played a positive role in DEI initiatives, at least to this point. And I hope that they're going to continue to play a large role in the future as well. Whether or not, those facilities change and you create something different, I don't know, but there's always that opportunity to have that space available to create a synergy or a place to have the conversation. But I think all spaces should have that conversation, no matter where it is on campus.
Right.
But those provide you to the initial start.
Right.
Yeah.
And then putting your mayor hat on, what perspective have you brought to that, or what's the outsider view on how the college should be reacting? And
that's a good question. It's we've had a lot of we had gatherings on the Village Green, that have been in support of Black Lives Matter, which I think is a really important gesture. The struggle for me was always been really the difficulty in I don't have a police department per se, and that's here or there, but but also trying to do this as a part of the pandemic. How do we keep people safe? Some of the restrictions that we had with regards to the gatherings and the spaces and the like, and how do we monitor that, and to make sure that we have these things, we have demonstrations, or gatherings that are safe to recognize, so people can speak out and have that opportunity. And I think it was pretty positive down here. We still have a group that still does something on Friday, I believe, we approved something at the board meeting a month ago for the Kirkland Democratic Committee to have something on Friday. But regardless, I think I would hope that I could bring to the board, or as much as I can, a sense of what we might be able to offer if we have something to offer.
Gotcha.
At least to give them a sense of our structure, so that people understand, how we operate, how the village operates, as a village government operates, and the like, and what's available down here. And we have two different, one thing is that, I'm the mayor of Clinton, but there's a town that surrounds me.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty well enclosed to this. And there were moments where, that people thought I was also involved. I was in charge of the town too. Whoa, my role has grown, but but I think that so that became a little bit of an interesting dilemma, but we worked through that. But I think for me, it's been an eye opener. I guess it's been given me an opportunity to understand people's opinions, their personal lives in a different focus.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be quite honest with you. There's things that I learned that I wish that I had known, many years ago. Mm. And so, if much as anything, it's not what I brought to the table; it's what the table brought to me.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned the demonstrations on the green. Is the community by and large supportive of that? If you had to, yeah, good.
Yeah, very, very supportive. It was very quiet. There wasn't a lot of angst about those things. I think there was, it was just a recognition that we need to have the conversation, and this is something that we have to do every day. Have the conversation and and whether it's a conversation or not, it's really just being kind to one another, respect each other for their position and who they are, and not have fear about the other individual.
Right.
Getting back to the DEI and the council, they've done a wonderful job. Mm-hmm. I think that they've been very thoughtful. They've worked very hard. You've got to keep in mind that we started this thing we started the council back in July, 1st of July. They've been very thoughtful about meeting every week, except for maybe 3 weeks over the Christmas holiday and Thanksgiving break there in that time frame. But other than that, it's been every Thursday for an hour and a half. Wow. Chatting, working, and during the week reading and putting together programs, putting together a package that we feel is a very that we can deliver to David. And I think it's and I can't stress how hard working this group is to and trying to make sure that they're trying to get the right things out to people and communicate. And it's a challenge. I mean, communications is always going to be a challenge, but I think that they've worked very hard at it, and they've struggled through that. But I think that they've really have worked very hard to come up with some possibilities, and we're hopefully listening. We're taking feedback from the community right now, and hopefully putting those together and getting that set up so that David has a complete package of what we've talked about, but what has come before us, as what's taken place and what people's ideas are right now, so that it's a complete package that they can work with.
Good.
And
Good.
Hopefully, and the students and the faculty and the staff can sink their teeth into, and then hopefully this is, like I said, it's ongoing work.
Yeah, I had a conversation with about 6 or 7, maybe 10 members of the class of 1956 who had been getting together ahead of a reunion, which likely won't happen in person. And rather than just share old drinking stories and share the good times, it was all about this topic and what they can do to help the school. And they were meeting with Dean, Terry Martinez, and the whole conversation of my time with them, an hour and a half with them, was all about white privilege and diversity, equity, inclusion, and what can they do? And, they don't know the school anything at this point, and here they are still trying to make a change. And so I think, like, to your point, it doesn't end.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't. And I think that's the idea. This is a continuum. And I think that it really has to be such that, because we're graduating this group every year. Somebody's leaving and going out into the community, and we should be having that conversation so that they, whether no matter who they are, that they can have that conversation effectively and be able to move forward with it in the larger community, because we're sending people out to change the world. I really have the strength of young folks to me is just remarkable. I remember coming out with a lot of ideals out of the academy. I'm a little bit more, the idealism maybe is still there a little bit, but it's a more pragmatic idealism. But I think, we have to have that idealism coming into the world to make those changes.
So your term's ending, Mr. Mayor. What's next for you? I'm
going sailing.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
For me, I'm not going to do a 50-day trip across the Atlantic again. I'll give that. I'll let somebody else do that. But I do have, I'm looking at trying to go sailing in April for about 10 days or something. Just out in the Atlantic, just go down the coast and, bounce around a little bit, see if I can get my sea legs back for a short bit. I've been away from the salt water for almost 15 months, and I'm starting to get itchy. I'm starting to get, I'm what you call, I'm getting twitchy right now. So I need to get back out and get my arms around a halyard or so in a rudder and a tiller or a wheel or something. I don't know, whatever it is. I need to just to smell the salt air for something and feel that. And I hopefully got a good trip coming up. And so we'll see what that takes place. And after that, there's things that are happening in the village that we need to continue on with that I hopefully continue to be involved with. Not as mayor, but we've got a lot of work to do down here anyway. And so I'd like to continue on with some of that. And also find out with my wife has been pretty lonely with me being mayor here recently, so I'd like to maybe find out what she looks like here.
All right, that's Steve Bellona, mayor of Clinton, New York. I had quite a few people recommend Steve as a guest, and you can see why. Good sense of humor, incredibly nice person, cares deeply about Hamilton College, cares deeply about the extended community around Hamilton and the village of Clinton. And he's done a lot to advance that community. So I was honored to get a chance to talk to him. I hope he gets out sailing soon. And, perhaps the most important thing he said in that conversation was he made a comment that architects are incredibly smart people. And I have to agree with that. And I know because I'm married to one. And those words are extremely true. My thanks to Mayor Steve Bellona for joining. You have been listening to Had I Known on WHCL-FM, Clinton, New York. HadIKnown.buzzsprout.com. Had I Known show on social media. As always, my thanks to Dr. Michael Woods for supplying the music on the show. And once again, Doc is going to play us out. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Had I Known podcast show on your radio or take it to go.